Let's talk about the engine that really drives our world. It's this psychological quirk that fuels innovation, builds entire empires. But you know what? It's also responsible for some of the most spectacular failures in history. So what is this powerful, paradoxical force? What's the secret ingredient? I mean, what makes people risk everything they have on a brand new idea? The answer is a specific cognitive bias, and I'm guessing it's probably not the one you're thinking of. Yep, it's overconfidence. It's this fundamental optimistic bias that makes us all believe the world is just a little bit safer, that our own skills are a little sharper, and our goals are just a bit more achievable than they actually are. And this leads us straight into something called the optimism paradox. Because this isn't just, a personality trait. It's a fundamental bias in our thinking that acts like a really powerful double-edged sword. The Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman actually calls this optimistic bias the most significant of the cognitive biases. It's the blessing that pushes us to achieve absolutely incredible things. But it's also the risk that can lead us, straight off a cliff. So let's take a look at both sides of this coin, shall we? All right, let's start with the good stuff, the upsides. Why exactly is being an optimist, even let's say, a slightly delusional one, so incredibly beneficial? Well, the research on this is crystal clear. On a personal level, optimists have a huge advantage. They're generally happier, they're more resilient, and they're even physically healthier. Their immune systems are stronger, and they actually tend to live longer. Seriously, if you could give your child any single trait, optimism would be a really smart choice. But this isn't just about personal happiness. Oh no, this trait scales up to have a massive impact on all of society. The people who truly change the world, they're almost always optimists. They actively seek out challenges and take these huge risks because they genuinely believe they can control the outcome, often way more than is actually realistic. And it just makes sense, doesn't it? An entrepreneur's unwavering confidence, even if it's not entirely based in reality, is contagious. It helps them get that crucial funding. It inspires their team to work harder, and it gives them the grit to just push through all the obstacles. When you need to get something done, a healthy dose of optimism is absolutely essential. But that same persistent optimism can be incredibly costly. So now let's flip the coin and look at the other side, where that bright, shiny confidence casts a very dark shadow of predictable and often very expensive failure. Okay, time for a quick dose of reality. The odds of a new, small business in the United States surviving for 5 years, it's just 35%. I mean, think about that for a second. Nearly 2/3 of them just don't make it. But here's the crazy part. Entrepreneurs don't believe those odds apply to them. When they were surveyed, they estimated the chance of success for any business like theirs at 60%. That's almost double the actual rate. This is where we start to see that optimistic gap opening up. And if you thought that was a big gap, hold on. Here's where the delusion becomes totally undeniable. A staggering 81% of those same entrepreneurs rated their own personal odds of success at a 7 out of 10 or higher. And get this, a full third of them said their chance of failing was zero. Zero! They're absolutely convinced the objective odds simply do not apply to them. And look, this isn't just a small business thing. In the massive corporate world, it's known as the Hubris Hypothesis. You've got these overconfident CEOs making these huge billion-dollar bets on mergers, totally convinced they can manage another company's assets better than its own leaders. The data shows these moves fail way more often than they succeed, often just destroying shareholder value in the process. So, what is going on here? Why does this keep happening over and over again? Well, it's not just wishful thinking. It's actually a fundamental glitch in how our brains are wired to process information. The main culprit has a pretty strange name, WYSIATI. That's WYSIATI. It stands for What You See Is All There Is. Our minds are basically designed to build a coherent story using only the information that's right in front of us, while almost completely ignoring the vast, vast amount of information we don't have. And this leads directly to a huge problem called competition neglect. We get so focused on our own great plan, our own talented team, our brilliant idea, that we naturally imagine a future where the competition barely even matters, right? We know our own world so intimately, we know almost nothing about theirs. So we just ignore them. I love this example. A former Disney chairman was once asked why multiple studios all released their huge blockbuster movies on the exact same weekend. His answer was so simple: hubris. He said everyone is so focused on their own great movie and their own great marketing plan, they just don't stop to think that 5 other studios are doing the exact same thing. It's a perfect real-world case of WYSIATI in action. So if this bias is so deeply baked into our thinking, what can we possibly do? How can we manage the risks of overconfidence without, extinguishing that optimistic flame that drives all progress in the first place? Well, thankfully, there's a powerful and surprisingly simple technique for this, and it was developed by the psychologist Gary Klein. It's called the pre-mortem. Okay, here's how it works. It's brilliant. Right before you make a final decision, you get the team together and you say this: imagine we are 1 year in the future. We implemented our plan. It was a complete and utter disaster. Then, everyone spends a few minutes just quietly writing a brief history of that disaster. What went wrong? It's a simple shift in perspective, but it's totally transformative. The pre-mortem is so effective for a couple of key reasons. First, it completely overcomes groupthink by making doubt and criticism not just okay, but a required part of the process. And second, it unleashes the imagination of your team to look for threats that your collective optimistic bias would have made you ignore otherwise. So this leaves us with one final question for you. Think about the most important project you're working on right now. You're probably optimistic about it, and hey, that's a good thing. But have you done its pre-mortem? It might just be the most productive 10 minutes you spend all week.